Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished entrepreneur and a leader from Noida, India, Mr. Vijay Kumar. Vijay, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Vijay is the founder and chief executive officer of TSUYO Manufacturing Private Limited. He's passionate about creative writing and is working on 2 books. So, Vijay, a few questions for you before we come to your business. As you look back at your journey from your first venture, Biryani Box, to leading multiple startups today, what has changed most in how you think about risk and decision making?
Yeah, so it's pretty relevant question because once you start the first entrepreneurship journey, and having said that, I don't have any legacy of business in my family, so it was like a first generation entrepreneur, you can say. So from that, so definitely the Biryani Box was the, you can say, the transformative journey and year where
Hmm.
I founded the company and started that particular business.
Right.
And during that, I could have many instances and circumstances where I could understand how the business is completely uncertain and uncertain, which you can't even imagine, because these are not the systematic risks; these are unsystematic risks.
Mm.
So these are very asymmetric also in your complete ecosystem. So
Mm.
that's way. So that was the, you can say, the first business where I could understand everything in terms of the stakeholders,
Mm.
including like customers, your own employees, your resources, your infrastructure,
Mm.
your complete market dynamics, the government's decisions. Because the Biryani Box was the year when I had the most, you can say, unsystematic risk. That was basically the GST, and
Mhm.
another was the demonetization. So
Mhm.
both the things happened during that particular time, and that, in fact, that's something which I never experienced in my complete journey until now, in fact. So that's
Right.
something which was a regulatory risk which happened, and that shook the complete journey.
Very interesting. And a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with their first exit. You had a great exit with Biryani Box. What are some of the lessons you have taken from one exit into your future ventures?
Yeah, the one important thing is like what I can see right now is the precedence what we are trying to create in this startup ecosystem. The people are running after the investment.
Hmm.
Most of the time, when you make a business, you try to start something afresh, and mostly I would say the current generation who are getting into the. It's not important like what age you are in, but yes, as a business, the zero age business which they are starting, mostly people are creating right to something which can attract some investor. It is not important.
Hmm.
You are creating entity which is going to define the whole journey and whole experience of yourself, and that's deriving out of your passion. So that's something which should be self enabled, self-sustainable, and that must be something which is a value creator. Okay, so
Hmm.
so it's not important whether you get the investment from outside, get the investment or support from the government or not. It is just something which you understand from the roots of the business basic principle. When you are making a business, that has to be profitable. So unit economy is something which was very important for me, and that's, I would suggest everybody, whatever you do, doesn't matter the investment comes or not, you have to basically pivot around the unit
Hmm.
economy.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is important.
Very interesting. Thank you. You also have over a decade of experience in strategy, operations, and analytics. Was there a moment in your career when you realized that execution and not ideas can only define long term success?
Yes, in fact, I won't say like it is only through the previous credentials. In fact, for my professional expertise and experience, what I had the whole instant with the different companies in
Hmm.
terms of getting the realization about the execution importance, it is more of like I would say idea is never important. Idea is
Correct.
never important.
Mhm.
It is also like whatever is already there in the ecosystem, you can redefine the same in a different way.
Hmm.
So, as a business, there are only two things which is important. And I suggest, and I think maybe it is my opinion, but any business, if you want to say, what is special about it? So it is always pivot around two things. One is like your process.
Hmm.
Whenever you redefine the process, there is a business.
Hmm.
Whenever you redefine a technology, there is a business. There is nothing else, no idea, nothing in fact. So what
Right.
I suggest, and when you have this, then definitely the process has to be in place, and this process is important to have an execution backup. So if you can't execute it, no matter what is the idea, no matter how good you are in terms of design or something, you are just an exhibition per se. You are just
Hmm.
a showcase, nothing as a demonstration. So that is important.
Hmm. Hmm. Well said. Vijay, let's now talk about Suyo Manufacturing, which is clearly a new project that you are working on. Tell me a little bit about Suyo Manufacturing and what is the problem that you set out to solve? And why did you believe the market was ready for this?
See, I won't say like shoe manufacturing was something which was already conspiring in my mind. I
Hmm.
was not, I didn't uh, take the birth of this entrepreneurship with the SEO in my mind, because that's,
Hmm.
you can say, like multiple business, multiple fronts. But yes, SEO is one of the initiative which I took it when I saw the opportunity.
Hmm.
So I was basically, I am having another business which is basically into the service space, where I
Hmm.
am providing consulting and a lot of holistic solution to the industry, and especially towards the manufacturing.
Hmm.
So there, when there was a part of the assignment, we got many opportunity in terms of the new energy systems. And new energy systems means like related to the solar, related to the electric vehicle and others. So that's the
Hmm.
way. And that was the year when I also roamed around many other countries where the electric vehicle was already set up.
Hmm.
Electric vehicle whole ecosystem was getting shaped up, and China was one of the country where I just understood the way China was evolving. That was something which is the same going to happen in India, because India is just, you can say, it's a China. It's just a China plus one. You can say, as in India is the most important substitution. So whatever China is doing, the same India is doing after 20 years.
Hmm.
So what I saw in China, I thought like, yes, the same thing is going to happen in India. And it is important also. It is going to be the part of the ecosystem, because that's what we are looking forward to, reducing the carbon footprint, the government policies, and the way we are evolving in the industry. So it is going to happen the similar way. So that was the you can say the turning point where I decided first to get into this industry. The
Hmm.
second, when we decided, so it was very clear. See, as an entrepreneur, as I told you, my pivot is always around unit economy. I don't see anything like I have to prove like I'm a businessman, or I have
Hmm.
to prove like I'm a startup, or I'm an entrepreneur, or as a founder. It is most important what I am trying to do. That is going to solve, that is going to create some value of the ecosystem. Second, it has to be sustainable.
Hmm.
It is not something which is already existing and trying to just painting a picture in a different way. It is most
Hmm.
important, if you are creating a value out of it, then definitely it's
Right.
going to sustain.
Right.
So SUYO is a powertrain company. It's a powertrain solution provider. India is already an automotive country, and after China, it is the most dense and it is the most demanding country in terms of automotive. The
Hmm.
legacy is already there. There's
Hmm.
nothing you're going to change, because there are very big players already existing in this particular ecosystem, like Tata, Mahindra, Ashok Leyland, Maruti, and everybody is there, Toyota. How you can go to redefine this particular space, because these are the very big giants, and they can just definitely, they can't let you to make a vehicle, let you to be an OEM. Okay, so
Hmm.
you have to just think what is missing. The missing piece was the R&D, because
Right.
India is never a R&D company. Correct.
Hmm.
So if I would have designed an engine, nobody would have allowed me to take the space. When I took this particular space, this was something which is totally entirely missing in this particular ecosystem in India.
Hmm.
So, and
Hmm.
that's why we thought like this is going to be a sustainable piece. And I don't want to be a poster boy and hero of this ecosystem. I'm
Right.
very happy to sitting beside the backstage and solving the real problem of the ecosystem.
Hmm. Well said. Within supply chain resilience is a very major issue
Yes.
globally. How have you designed your supply chain to manage volatility and risk?
Uh, I just try to pull some very interesting string of my professor, who was a like very known guy in the strategy consulting, and he taught me in IIM Calcutta during my MBA days. And his name is Professor Ranjan Das. You can Google it and see it. It's a very interesting person and very good orator. So
Hmm.
he told in one of the class, like, see. it is not important to create something which is very visual and it is very differentiating, okay,
Mm.
and it is something which is a breakthrough. You can get imitated any day.
Mm.
So there is a competition, there's an ecosystem always looking at you.
Mm.
How you create the complexity in your value creation, how you create complexity in terms of your positioning, your differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not about only the product or any particular process. It is most important every aspects of your business. The way
Mm.
you hire the people, the way you build your supply chain, the way you build the product, the way you do the manufacturing, the way you do the research, the way you think, the way you try to make a strategy, everything has to be different and unique, and that's make the whole ecosystem as a complex.
Mm.
Even let's suppose I am making a product and providing a product, and I just made, let's suppose I'm just producing a pen, okay, and that's making a pen. Many people can make a pen, but I'm when selling this pen, how I can make the whole ecosystem of pen, this
Right.
providing this pen as a solution, as a complex. The
Mm.
competition cannot imitate me in terms of my price discovery, in
Right.
terms of my supply chain, in terms of my resources, who is selling this pen, so
Right.
everything. So that's the way the supply chain resilience was also very important. And from the day one, it is
Mm.
not only just looking at this particular ecosystem, it is day one. We are working on the different components of my supply chain part, different vendor ecosystem. So it is not only the import, it is like a mix of import, it's the indigenous localized parts. It is a mix of certain your indigenous in-house ecosystem part,
Mm.
captive production
Mm.
also as a subsystem level. And definitely in terms of multiple supplier, vendor complexity, the material selections, all these things are, you can say, the different mix of the supply chain resilience, which is making the overall ecosystem more immune to this kind of change and fluctuation.
Mm.
And we have seen all these changes like magnet crisis and everything, but still we are surviving and we
Yeah.
are making our impact.
Very interesting. And how do Lean and Six Sigma principles practically show up on the factory floor at your company?
If you look at my company name, that is a CEO, it's a Japanese name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and Japanese name because this is something ingrained in my complete vision and my whole act also, because I have worked with the Japanese very close.
Mm-hmm.
I have worked with Hitachi. I was a part of Hitachi R&D ecosystem, and
Mm.
I was the corporate R&D team leader, and reporting to the Japanese team in Japan, Tokyo. And I was managing Hitachi's different business vertical, and it was basically part of our corporate R&D team.
Mm.
So while working with Hitachi, and definitely I worked before that, I worked with Tata Hitachi also. That is also again a Hitachi joint venture with the Tata.
Mm.
So I have been very much exposed towards the Japanese ecosystem, and that's why this lean, the value stream mapping, the TQM, this a whole the TQM is basically total quality management systems. That TPM level, everything is already in the blood of my professionalism, and that's why it is something which I try to translate in my manufacturing vision also, and that's about the CEO. And if you come to our place, it's definitely we are a startup. We are just 5 years old company, but if you just look at our manufacturing base, we have very beautifully managed in a very lean way. We have very few people. It's not like we have just ramped up with many resources, and everybody is having an impact whatever they are trying to do.
Mm.
Then multi-skilling of the internal resources, and at the plant level also, at the process level, you'll find everything, whether it's a quality, whether in process quality, whether
Mm.
it's a dispatch quality, whether it's a customer level quality, in the processes, all kind of SOP, pokayoke, this control plan, check sheet, all these things are there. We do have a Gemba walk. We try to get into the system, see the things, and then try to make an impact on the RC and all the levels. So all kind of tools and everything is already, because I was in the practice exposure. So I
Mm.
acknowledge the same and try to implement it in my business from the day one.
Very interesting. The other question I had about Six Sigma or ISO is how important is a strong quality culture,
Hmm.
in an organization like Suyo to be able to get the best out of Six Sigma?
Six Sigma definitely is a tool, is an enabler, just to
Correct.
put everything in a format and in a particular shell, because that's important to create a consistency in your approach.
Mm.
But it is not about Six Sigma only. It is like, as you rightly asked and pinpointed, the culture, because culture is very much important,
Correct.
because the way you try to build something which has to totally ingrained, because I have also been through that culture, because that's why I have tried to just implemented the same thing into here, into my ecosystem, because I have learned through Hitachi, I have learned through Tata
mm,
and Hitachi joint venture company and all. So the similar way, I had this hard learning, like culture is very important. This
mm,
is whether I am there or not, whether my leader who are trained and that is they are leading the business or not, but it's important about how this culture is going to be sustained, because and the culture is going to be sustained when you build this culture as the most important piece of organization. And
mm.
that's why basically this culture, quality culture, is very important. It's not about only the quality practices,
Yeah.
quality system. It is important about the culture, which is the part of your attributes of your resources. That is important.
Well said. You also have deep expertise in quality and warranty management. How does Suyo ensure quality while maintaining speed and cost competitiveness?
Yeah, because see, this is one of the also you can say differentiation as part of my competitive landscape, where after sales and service is very important,
Mm.
and that's why the warranty is one piece of the after sales service part, which is the part of the product
Yeah.
attributes. And we ensure, like when my product or my services
Mm,
basically established in the market, the customer must have this assurance and the confidence, because I'm not selling the product, I'm selling a promise, correct? Because my product and process is going as a promise to the customer and customer, and this promise is something which is going to deliver at a different cost, different rituals which you have built, and these different rituals and threads are
mm,
the part of your after sales service, which is stemming from the warranty and then non warranty period also. So the warranty is, and that's why that is the way we have built as one of the very important piece and vertical of my product.
Vijay, moving on, how do you see automation, AI, and digital twins transforming manufacturing over the next 5 years? And where does Suyo fit into that future? Vijay, tell me, how do you see automation, AI, and digital twins transforming manufacturing over the next few years? And where does Suyo fit into that future?
Yeah, so this is something which is very relevant to the manufacturing, because manufacturing is always defined on the scale. And when you are going to define a scale, you need something as this digital intervention, the AI and automations, which are very important and key spices of
Mm,
this overall process. And that's why these are things which are very important, because if you don't have these things, it's very difficult to scale on the human component completely 100%, because
mm,
that repeatability, that consistency, that kind of reproducibility is very difficult on the human interface only, and it goes on vary. And so that's why the automation and AI, because AI is something which is definitely which has come as a practice very recently, and that's
mm,
something which is really redefining the whole space.
mm,
And that is also important. Sometimes you need certain conclusive and decision power and decision making towards your system which you have
mm,
already built. So
mm,
earlier there were the systems, the digital intervention, the automation were there, but these automations were not having this intelligence. So now when these automations are having certain intelligence which is based on the cognitive part, just like a human brain, then
mm,
definitely it is going to redefine this space. And that's why this AI, this digital intervention as a complete you can say hybrid approach is very much important, and that's bringing going to bring this space as a cognitive intelligence space, and that's something which is going to be really more important and very unique thing about the manufacturing.
mm. Very interesting. One more question for you on marketing. How do
Mhm.
you approach go-to-market strategy for Suyo in a very competitive and price-sensitive marketing environment?
Yeah, see, I would say the price is something uh, which is not as like a new thing, which is something always existing in the market. Whenever you
Right.
go to buy anything, the people say, "Oh, it's a very costly." And India is a market like is a very price sensitive market.
Yeah.
So the price discovery, the whole price ladder, the price re-engineering, price engineering, the breakthrough, everything is something which is very important as part of the sales and marketing, where in the marketing when you're trying to create a future prospect, because sales is something is a present prospect, correct?
Mm,
You go and sell, but how you sell, unless until you have a marketing, right marketing, which is going to create your future prospect, where you can go and then consume this particular opportunity and convert it, and that becomes a sales. So this marketing is important to have the understanding in terms of behavioral pattern of the consumer,
Mm-hmm.
the changing pattern of the consumer, the competitive landscape, the complexities of the systems, the environment, the economy. So everything is very important. While we are going to work in this marketing front, we always try to sensitize towards all these aspects of the business, all these aspects of the customer side, the downstream side, and also the aspects which is going to create, you can say, as an image in the customer's mind, in the consumer's mind, as like how this company is going to put this product, offer this product. So it's very important to create that image, which create a belief, and that's basically your brand equity also in the market. So that's the way we always try to stick to our marketing policies and principles.
Very interesting. I have time for two more questions for you.
Yeah.
Uh, you have led cross-functional and cross-cultural teams. As you look back at your own career, what leadership mistakes did you make early on, and how have you corrected them?
So, as because I'm a get-goer kind of person. So, earlier, in fact, in my earlier career also, and in my earlier businesses also, there's something which basically uh, which I try to solve and always try to also tell the people, because it is not one man army.
Mm,
I had my team, I had my everything in place, but I was always like, okay, it's not working. The team is not able to do it or solve it, or the resources are not competent. So let's do it by myself. So,
mm,
and that's something which is very, very wrong. Till what time, until what level? Because you are also aging in terms of your capability, capacity, age, everything. So it is important to create the system as a leadership which is going to sustain and scale also,
mm,
whether you are there or whether you are not there. So that's
mm,
something which I would say that was a mistake in the formative years, during my formative years of my business also. And I always try to intervene and get into all the process and things. Like, I just wanted everything perfect. So
mm,
everything perfect means you have to just put your nose into everything. So this is something which you have to always try to escape. Maybe there will be certain places you will find that things are not very fast, not in your mood, not in your terms,
mm,
but you have to let it go. So let it go approach sometimes is very important, so that your team can foster, can really thrive on, and can also learn from the mistakes, because I
mm,
have also learned from my mistakes in my engineering career, my professional instinct also. So I think something which is initial years, the initial formative years for everybody, everyone,
mm,
everybody is an entrepreneur in their own self. And that's something which I would suggest, and I think like it's very important as a leadership to understand,
mm,
it is not one man army. You have to create an army, complete army, correct?
mm, mm. My last question for you, Vijay. You took a plunge from Biryani Box into manufacturing, which is so capital intensive. What would your advice be to a lot of my viewers and listeners who want to get into manufacturing sector but are worried about capital intensity and the complexity?
See, I will first take on the capital intensive part, because
Yeah.
this is a capex oriented and investment oriented first. Then we'll get into the complexity of the part. Correct.
Mm,
So the capex things, the initial infra and investment and all manufacturing, yes, it is always there, and that's why the manufacturing is correct.
mm,
So, and otherwise you don't get that kick. It is not a service industry. You just have some few faces, cosmetics, and then you have computer and get the soft floor. You get the machines, seeing the machines working in real time. Everything is real, correct? So while seeing this, it is definitely, you can't just define this without basically one M is man, another M is all these four M is very important. So this five M is very important. You own everything at a first has this liberty, because there is an ecosystem, there is a subshape, there is something is a design house, there is something are just a combination and some of all the. So in this way, it is important ecosystems contributors as a what you are going to be best and what where you are going to create all the capex at the same go and at the same level. It is something as a stepwise. So that's why you have to be really free from this mind onus. Like it is something has to be very capital intensive. You can always take a smaller steps, baby steps, and then you go achieve milestones, and stepwise you basically improve upon. The second is in terms of the complexity. Yes, that is linked with the first step. The more and more you take the bolder steps in terms of more capex, more investment, your complexity will also arise. So similar way, you have to basically solve at a different level the different complexity. So you have to take the ownership in terms of what you can do at level 1, then level 2, level 3. So you can also solve this problem of the complexity, the profoundness of the process, the product, or the resources. So this is the way I think it is solvable, and it is also very much easy to accommodate this initiative, manufacturing as an initiative, I think.
Okay. And on that note, Vijay, I just want to say thank you very much for this amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing with me and my viewers and listeners your deep thoughts on how you have built such an amazing group of companies, your first venture, Suyo Manufacturing, and what are your plans. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck
Thank
to
you
you.
very much. Thank you, Astos. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.